Stealing items and escaping with your pockets full in Burglin Gnomes might seem like a simple task at first. The game lures you in with its charming visuals, but you soon realize that the difficulty curve demands much more than just running to grab things and getting out. After spending several hours testing different approaches and making plenty of mistakes to understand the actual mechanics of stealth and movement, I discovered a few secrets that significantly improved my game. Today, I'm going to share 10 advanced tips that will transform your chaotic attempts into true master-level heists. Grab your pointed hats, because what I'm about to show you is the key to truly mastering the game. This tip is where many people get into trouble without realizing it, because a weapon in Burglin Gnomes is not synonymous with an advantage. It's a risk. All the time. It seems tempting to use everything you find, but the game punishes those who use them without thinking. When you understand this, you start playing much more consciously and avoid those silly deaths that end a run. The knife is the best example of this. It's great for staggering humans and eliminating rats and cockroaches quickly, but the danger is real. If you use it carelessly, you might end up hitting your own gnome. This happens more than it should, especially in moments of desperation. So the ideal is to always attack pointing away from your body and preferably with space around you. Bathroom grenades are practically an ace up your sleeve against the old man. When you learn to use them well, you can even turn the tide in tense situations. But there's no secret. Light it, run. Don't try to be a hero because the timing is short and the damage is high. If used at the right moment, it opens a huge window for the team to act without pressure. Now, the firearm is one you save as a last resort. Using it against the cat or evil gnomes can save the run, but using it unnecessarily is a waste. In general, the more you treat these weapons as situational tools and not as a standard solution, the more consistent your gameplay becomes, and the less you become a victim of the game's own chaos. If there's one thing this game teaches you quickly, it's that danger doesn't always come from the enemy. Sometimes it comes from yourself. In Burglin Gnomes, the way you hold items makes all the difference, and ignoring this is basically asking to turn into a disassembled gnome in seconds. I learned this the hard way. I was there carrying a weapon, walking through the environment, when I accidentally bumped into a piece of furniture, and that was it. The game doesn't forgive. The weapon fired on its own and finished me off instantly. It's the kind of physics that isn't there just for show. It really reacts to everything. And it's not just with firearms. Knives and bear traps are also extremely dangerous. If you move incorrectly or let the object turn toward you, it's game over. The game treats these items as if they were real, so any awkward collision can result in instant dismemberment. So here's a tip. Always pay attention to the angle of what you are carrying. It might seem like a small detail, but it's exactly this kind of carelessness that turns a smooth run into total chaos. Here, your biggest enemy might very well be your own lack of caution. At the beginning, it's normal for everyone to run around, grabbing anything and panicking when the old man shows up. But when you define clear roles within the squad, the game stops being just a mess and becomes almost a tactical operation, albeit still a very funny one. The scout, for example, is that quicker player who goes ahead, explores rooms, and marks what is actually worth taking. This saves an absurd amount of time because it avoids that disorganized in and out routine. The hauler is essential when the loot starts to get heavy. It's no use finding good items if you can't carry them out. Having someone focused solely on this makes collection much more efficient. Now, the role that produces the most chaotic moments is the distractor. This person basically becomes the hero of chaos, drawing the old man's attention, making noise on purpose, and creating space for the rest of the team to work calmly. Meanwhile, the anchor is the one who keeps everything safe. They stay near the exit, help ensure the loot isn't lost, and can even save someone left behind. This balance between risk and safety makes a big difference in the harder runs. And the detail that ties it all together is the use of voice chat. There's no point in defining roles and playing in silence. The ideal approach is to adjust during the match, like someone calling out that they found rare loot or need urgent help. When the team starts to communicate well and everyone understands their function, the game becomes much more fluid. And best of all, it remains funny, just with much more control. If there's one thing that completely changes how you play, it's starting to treat noise as a limited resource. It's not just about opening everything, breaking whatever you see, and running through the map. Every action adds up, and before you know it, you've passed the limit and the chaos begins. I started treating this as an actual noise budget, especially in larger maps like Manor and Estate. If the team isn't organized, someone always overdoes it at the beginning and ruins the entire run. So the ideal approach is to hold back at the start, doing everything in stealth mode, grabbing the basics without attracting attention. Interestingly, this even changes the group's communication. Instead of using distractions all the time, you start thinking more carefully. Is it worth spending this noise now, or can we handle it calmly? When everyone gets into this rhythm, the game becomes much more controlled. And curiously, even tenser. The reason for this is simple. The detection meter doesn't forgive. It rises fast, and when it hits the limit, there's not much to do but deal with the confusion. So if you want more consistent runs, treat silence as a strategy. Because in this game, making less noise basically means surviving longer. If you just enter the house grabbing whatever is in front of you, you'll have fun, but you'll lose a lot of scoring potential. When you start prioritizing tasks by tiers, the game becomes much more strategic and rewarding. Opening the menu with Tab and actually reading the tasks already puts you ahead of many people. High gnome missions, especially those more specific ones like breaking a TV or stealing a rare item, generally provide a much higher return. So instead of randomly picking everything up, you enter with a clear objective. This saves time and reduces the risk of being exposed unnecessarily. The 3-tier idea works very well in practice. Urgent tasks are the ones you solve first, usually of high value or those that might become harder if left for later. Useful tasks act as a secondary plan, things you do along the way without deviating much from the main route. And bonuses are that easy loot you leave for the end or only grab if the run is going smoothly. When the whole team understands this logic, the difference is huge. You stop having that feeling of always being late or lost and start playing with more control. And the most interesting thing is that this doesn't make the game less fun. It just makes the decisions smarter, which in the end results in those chaotic matches but with much more success. If you're still playing Burglin Gnomes only on the ground, you're missing half the game. The gnomes climbing and parkour is simply broken in how useful it is. And when you master it, you start accessing areas that seem impossible at first glance. One of the coolest things is using the environment itself as an improvised ladder. An open door, a pulled out drawer, an open oven, everything becomes a platform. I've reached high countertops just by stacking these things in a makeshift way, and it works better than it looks. The game rewards those who experiment. Now, where this really shines is in co-op. You can literally use other gnomes as support, creating living ramps or helping pull heavy objects to clear a path. When the team understands this, the tightest maps stop being blocks and turn into much more creative puzzles. And there's a detail that makes all the difference: the so-called grabby hands. If you don't have precision when grabbing, everything falls apart. So it's worth practicing this fine control because it's what turns these crazy ideas into consistent routes. Once you get the hang of it, you start moving through the map as if you were cheating the game. Not every death in Burglin Gnomes is definitive immediately. You can rescue your teammates if you act fast, and this completely changes the dynamics of the runs, especially when everything starts to go wrong. I've lost count of how many times someone fell into the oven or was crushed, and we managed to bring them back at the last second, but this doesn't happen by luck. Someone needs to be prepared. Having an anchor or a distractor ready makes all the difference, because you can pull the gnome back without exposing yourself too much. When the chaos starts, that's when what I like to call chain rescue comes in. One saves the other, who saves another, and so on. It looks messy, but when the team is minimally coordinated, you can recover a run that already seemed completely lost. In the end, this becomes almost a second layer of the game. It's not just about stealing and escaping, but also about keeping the team alive until the end. So if you want true consistency, don't play alone while in co-op. Always keep an eye on your partners, because saving a gnome might be exactly what guarantees the victory. One thing that separates messy runs from really efficient ones is how you handle the loot. Many people try to carry everything at once to the exit, and that is exactly where it starts to go wrong. The secret is to think in stages, not in a direct dash. I like to do what you could call staging, gathering piles of loot at strategic points, near the exit, or on safe routes. This makes the extraction much faster later on and reduces that dangerous back and forth when the map is already on alert. It seems simple, but it completely changes the pace of the match. Another thing that helps a lot is to agree on a clear extraction signal with the team. It can be a gnome down, or any code that everyone understands instantly. When this call happens, there's no discussion. It's time to drop what you're doing and focus on the exit or regrouping. This avoids that classic desperation where everyone does something different. And if the idea is to play more aggressively, there's an extra layer there. Eliminating the human early can make things much easier, but you need to be prepared to deal with the evil gnomes afterward. In those moments, climbing onto high furniture becomes almost an improvised safe zone. In the end, it's all about control. Organizing the loot and knowing when to leave is what turns a chaotic run into a clean extraction. This tip is where Burglin Gnomes really shines, because the game rewards those who embrace chaos intelligently. It's not just about grabbing loot, it's about using the environment to your advantage. When you start exploring these crazy physical interactions, each match becomes almost an experiment, and that makes everything much more fun and efficient at the same time. Banana peels and mouse traps seem like a joke at first, but they are great for controlling movement and creating small traps. Throwing these in strategic spots can delay enemies, or even save someone without needing a direct confrontation. And the taser on rats is another underrated thing. It quickly resolves a threat that could become a bigger problem if ignored. The most interesting thing is when you start combining objects, breaking items in sequence, making noise on purpose, setting up improvised distractions. This creates a type of controlled chaos that plays in your favor. While everything seems out of control, you are actually manipulating the situation to open space for the team to act. And there's the fondling detail, which many ignore. Interacting as a human might seem strange at first, but it is exactly the kind of hidden mechanic that resolves complicated situations, like opening harder items or accessing specific areas. When you incorporate this into your gameplay, you start to see possibilities that didn't even cross your mind before. If you really want to evolve in Burglin Gnomes, you can't just go around buying random upgrades. The order makes a lot of difference. And I felt this in practice. Prioritizing movement and stealth at the beginning completely changes the game because you become faster, quieter, and make fewer mistakes. Once you have speed and noise reduction, even those runs that would normally go wrong start to flow better. You enter, do the basics without drawing attention, and leave with control of the situation. It's the kind of improvement that doesn't seem absurd on paper, but in gameplay, it has a giant impact. Only after that is it worth focusing on carry weight. Of course, carrying more loot is great, but it's useless to be weighed down if you can't move properly or keep making noise the whole time. When you already have mobility and stealth adjusted, then increasing carry capacity becomes a real bonus. And one thing many people ignore is the loot split. If the team distributes it fairly, especially by rewarding those who took more risk, the progression is much more balanced. There are even community calculators to help with this, but even just at a basic level, aligning this with the group makes everyone evolve together and avoids that feeling of unequal grind.